Hi guys, what is going on? Haribo41296 here, and welcome to another episode of HariboCast. The last episode went really well, so we're going to turn this into a series and see how it goes. We're once again joined by my good friends UK Cubing and IDK Cuber, so guys, why don't you say hi?
Yo, what up?
La 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 la. My voice is
Alright, so as you guys know, last week we talked about the problem with all these speed cubes that keep on coming onto the market, and we're going to kind of be carrying on that conversation, starting with the newly announced Cubicle Labs Waylong GTS M. So, if you don't know what this is, it's basically a 3x3, the Waylong GTS that the Cubicle has developed. They've added magnets into the pieces, a bit like a pyraminx, to make it as good a cube as possible. So, what do you guys think about this new cube?
So obviously last week we talked about the Moya magnetic pyraminx and how that's doing really good. So obviously they wanted to implement that into a 3x3, that being the Waylong GTS. One of the problems is they're selling it for about 50 quid, which is an insane amount to cost just for a couple of magnets. And even so, Chris Olsen did a video lately where he was talking about it, and he says that it's helpful, but there's not really that much of a different feel from the original thing, so is it really worth paying £50 to get a few magnets in it where there's not even that much of a different feel from the original?
I don't think that this cube is meant to sell well. I think that this cube is meant to be a sort of, it's not entirely practical, but we want to see what we can do. We want to see how far we can take this magnets thing. So even though it might be incredibly overpriced now, as it is incredibly overpriced, I personally believe that that's not, they're not trying to do it to sell well, they're trying to do it to sort of show, look what we can do. We're still, in the market, we're still doing new things with 3x3s, because you have to admit recently there's been a lot of copycatting and everything. So this is quite a unique, addition to the 3x3 market, and I don't know, I just think that they're not really trying to sell it, they're trying to show what they can actually do.
Yeah, I would agree with that to a certain extent. You all have probably heard of the Kancuber Zanchi, the Kancuber Guhong, all of these puzzles that have been made by Speedcube Shop. It's a similar process. He takes a stock cube and then kind of does some work on it, builds on it, and sees how good he can make the puzzle. And he specifically said in one of his videos, he doesn't want everybody to have this very high performance 3x3. They're kind of niche products that only the best solvers and only those who will really benefit from it will actually buy the cube. And I think that's kind of what the Cubicle is going for here. Obviously, not everyone will feel the benefit of the magnets. People that don't solve sub 10 probably won't feel any difference really. I think it is, as you say, just designed to see how far you can actually take 3x3s and how much better they can actually become, because I think we've kind of hit a brick wall in the development of new cubes. I don't think we can really get better 3x3s from stock, so I suppose the Cubicle maybe is just trying to make something fresh and make something new so they stay relevant in the market.
See, I find this a very awkward way to do it, because obviously they made it so highly priced because they wanted to try something new. But if they're wanting feedback on a new type of cube, they should have made the price a lot lower to get as much feedback as possible and know whether they are going to continue with magnetic cubes.
Yeah, I suppose you're right, because not everyone is going to be able to pay £50 or $50 or whatever the price is. It's obviously a very expensive cube. I personally would not buy it because I know that I won't really benefit from it. I guess the Cubicle are experts, they do know what they're doing, so maybe they don't need that feedback because obviously they can make it themselves, but I do agree not everyone's going to be able to try it, and I think it will always be a bit of a mysterious 3x3. Not everyone's going to know if it's worth it or not.
I believe that 3x3 is more of a prototype. It's something that they should have tried out a bit more and tried to maybe optimize it a bit more and just let a select few people actually try it and use it like the big YouTubers, and instead of doing what they're doing now and releasing an unfinished product and unoptimized. It's sort of almost like a demo. It's sort of like a prototype, but obviously prototypes are quite expensive to produce.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, obviously you also have the Cubicle Premium products, which are almost the same thing, maybe just a tone down a little bit, but they're basically still 3x3s that have been lubricated, sanded down to make them as high performance as possible. But how far do you guys think the Cubicle Premium 3x3s are actually going to differ from this Weilong GTS M 3x3? Do you think there'll actually be much difference?
Well, I think that there is going to be a difference in the, the Cubicle Premium, they know what they're doing with it. They've had experience, they've had the cubes for a while now. They know what, can make the cube good. And that is going to differ from the Weilong TTS M or the Weilong M or whatever it's called. Differ from that slightly in the way that they actually know what they're doing. Well, they don't know what they're doing with the Weilong M or whatever, because they've never done it before, and like I said, they shouldn't have released it, they should have tinkered with it until they'd actually got it right. And right now we don't feel much difference, but maybe as they start to get better at these magnetic puzzles, then obviously we'll see more, we'll see more performance boost or whatever. But until then, I would recommend just sticking with your Cubicle Premiums or whatever, just because, they actually know what they're doing, they have had experience with the cubes before.
Yeah, I suppose it's a little like the Moyu magnetic pyraminx in that they've created this brand new magnetic puzzle, but obviously they had a few problems with the caps not being magnetized, not even having ball bearings, and the first ever type of puzzle that they've created is not going to be the best that it can be. So I agree with you to the extent that I think the Cubicle M 3x3s, if they do decide to make it a thing, I know they're working on the Volk, I think it will take a little bit of time before they get it to an optimal kind of standard. Anyway, moving on from that, we heard this week that Moyu is actually developing a brand new Square One known as the Moyu Weilong Square One. So what do you guys think about this? We were talking last week about Moyu and Gans only making 3x3s and only focusing on those kind of puzzles. What do you guys think of Moyu actually stepping out and working on more WCA puzzles?
To be honest, I'm a little worried, because, don't get me wrong, they make brilliant puzzles, but they're putting it under the name of Weilong, and we talked about the problem of putting the name of a cube, a cube under the name of something that already exists and not making it anything like it, and they're making this Weilong a Square One, and if it turns differently than what you'd expect in a 3x3 Weilong, then a lot of people are going to be disappointed. I feel like they're only using the name Weilong to try and make it sell a little better.
Yeah, because a lot of people are going to be expecting a Square One that has the crunchiness and the speed of a Weilong. Now, I'm not entirely sure how they're going to do that. Maybe they'll pull it off, maybe they won't. But I think a lot of people are going to be expecting this to be the best Square One possibly ever. Maybe to overtake the Chi Square One. But I agree with you to the extent that they've decided to brand it as a Weilong Square One. And I don't know if they're going to be able to replicate the feeling of the Weilong GTS.
I mean, if they can, that would be absolutely brilliant, because in this past year we've seen massive improvements in Square One since previous years, because obviously a lot of them were catching, a lot of them popped easily, and then this year they've just been coming out with really smooth ones. Now, if they can bring one out that has the feels of a Weilong, it will be an absolutely beautiful turning Square One, and it will be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one of those things that we won't really find out until the puzzle is released. We're just going to have to be patient about that. But if we do move on from that as well, Chi is actually developing a clock. So again, we're seeing a lot of development from these companies in making more speedy WCA puzzles. So what are your guys' views on this interesting development and the way that we are kind of deviating from the N by N by N puzzles now in the speed solving community?
Well, I think I quite like the idea of, adding more to the table in a sort of thing, because let's be honest, we all get bored of, it takes a long time, but we all find a way to get bored of just solving, a 2x2 for 2 hours, or a 3x3 for 2 hours, and it's all very, similar. Every solve is very similar. Obviously not last layer, but, every solve is similar in the way that it works, and I think by these N by N by, not N by N by N puzzles, the sort of slightly non-WCA, but they are WCA, like the Square One and things in the pyraminx. I quite like, I don't know how to describe it, but I quite like that we've got more sort of deviation, we have more to turn to if we get bored, and we can pick up another puzzle, and it will benefit us from practicing. So say if you've got a competition up, and you really, really like, I don't know, a certain puzzle like clock or whatever, you can pick that up and you can have a lot of that deviation in competition. So those people who don't really like solving 3x3s or whatever, it just brings a lot more people in, and I think that the cubing community can grow more this way, because it means that more people of like a wider spectrum are becoming interested in seeing, newer puzzles coming out that are actually going to benefit them if they practice.
Yeah, definitely, because I have the Lingao clock, which is honestly one of the only accessible clocks on the market. The Rubik's branded clock is supposed to be the best one, but they've been discontinued for a very long time now. So the Lingao clock is a pretty abominable clock. It's a really bad puzzle. So you either have to do a lot of modifications in order for it to be good, or suffer with these stiff pins. So it's really great to see that Qi has found a gap in the market for a puzzle like the clock and decided to kind of, switch to a different category of products, and hopefully it's something that other big brands will be doing in the future for maybe like Megaminx, maybe Gigaminx, and this Shengshao 2x2 Megaminx has roused a lot of kind of ideas. Is it going to become a WCA puzzle or not? Hopefully it will. And then, what else could be added? They could make speed solving 2x2 Megaminxes. They might even add the Master Killer Minx to the list of WCA puzzles. Where do you guys think the kind of WCA community is going? What do you think could be added or taken away?
Well, the most obvious event that could be added is Killer Minx. Like the 2x2 Megaminx. Everyone's been going on about how that could be added to the WCA events, just because of how similar it is to a Megaminx and how much faster it is. So there's definitely space on there, and I don't really think anything needs taking off. But I think if anything is going to be taken off, it'll probably be clock.
Why would you say that? What makes you think that?
Well, most puzzles are like layer by layer puzzles. Even Scube has the feeling of a cube, but clock is just kind of it's kind of abstract. So there is a chance that it would be taken out if something else came in, but there's also, you can have the argument of saying that we need something abstract in the WCA events to make it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, clock is one of the only WCA puzzles, obviously since magic has been removed, that doesn't require algorithms to solve. It's purely intuitive, but with the other WCA puzzles, you mostly always have to know algorithms in order to solve the puzzles. And I do agree, clock is one of those kind of different types of puzzles, and it adds a little bit of variation. It's one of those puzzles that anyone can pick up and just be able to solve it, so maybe it should stay. I personally love magic, and I think that should have stayed as well. But yeah, I agree. I don't think a lot of things need to be taken away, but I think it would be really awesome if more puzzles were added to get more people involved, more people interested, and if there's a lot more puzzles on offer for you guys to kind of compete in, I think it will keep people interested for longer as well.
I think if we're on the topic of WCA puzzles being added and taken out, I think that at the moment we've got quite a nice amount of WCA puzzles. Lots of different competitions, do lots of different events. We have quite a lot, and I know that we do have a lot of short puzzles like 3x3 up to 4x4, and sort of that sort of thing. But I think the longer puzzles, the puzzles that take a longer time, so like 4 blind or 3 blind or whatever, I mean, I personally don't think there's gonna be room for them. And I know that's quite controversial if you do 5 blind or whatever, but I personally don't think there's any room for them in the WCA catalogue, shall we say. There isn't any room for them in the events, and if something was going to be taken out, it would probably be 5 blind, just because, let's be honest, what percentage of cubers can do 5 blind, right?
I have to admit, at ABHC 2016, there were not many people doing even 3x3 blind. It's a very specialised event, and I think it is starting to lack a little bit in people's interest. Obviously, it's a much longer process than just learning how to solve a 3x3, and while that's not a bad thing at all, I think more people seem to be edging towards the easier WCA puzzles and those that don't take quite as long. So I do agree, if things were to be taken out, maybe they'd remove feet, fewest moves, maybe something like that, while keeping the core puzzles obviously still as an event.
I think something that I'd find quite interesting to be brought to WCA would probably be cuboids. Now, we don't see cuboids at all in WCA events, and I don't really think that many people have thought about it, but we do see many different shapes, just not cuboids, so I think that'll be quite interesting.
That does sound really interesting actually, because 3x3x2 is a very quick puzzle, doesn't take long to solve, and it only requires a few algorithms, but there's still that kind of aspect of skill involved that only the world-class speed solvers will be able to do. I definitely agree. I think 3x3x4, 3x3x5 would be a really awesome addition, especially you could get subsets such as the non-proportional and the cubic 3x3x5s. I think that would be a really interesting option to add to the WCA.
I don't really think that cuboids, and Lewis will hate me for this, but I don't really think that cuboids, I think that smaller cuboids like the 2x2x3 or the 3x3x2, I think they might have a place, but the bigger cuboids like 4x4x5 or whatever, there's a very, very slim chance that they will have any sort of even getting close to becoming a WCA event, just because of what they are. It's sort of like, cuboids are it's very hard to get a hold of a cuboid that's been made, like, by a bigger company. However, if, for, say, Moyu decided they were going to make a cuboid, and it would be incredibly good, or that sort of thing, I do think that they would have a bigger chance. But because they're now moving on to current WCA events that are actually here, that are actually already available and sort of in the catalogue, shall we say, of WCA events, they're moving towards them, so they're not gonna start producing things like cuboids, and they're not gonna start producing things like other non-WCA puzzles. But I think if they did, then those puzzles that were produced would have a better chance of being actually implemented, and something like 5 blind or with feet would be taken out to replace it.
Well, yeah, but you could also say that maybe bring them into WCA will then inspire companies to make more cuboids. So you can flip it around and say it like that.
You just can't say.
Yeah, I guess there is no knowing. Yeah, I mean, no one can really tell what puzzles are going to be released within like a year or so. We can't really think that far ahead. But the WCA has definitely kind of received a lot of interest in the previous weeks, and I think it's definitely going to have to evolve when all of these new puzzles start to come out. But we are at almost 20 minutes, so we're going to have to end the podcast here, guys. If you have enjoyed it, though, please remember to leave a like, leave a comment down below with any suggestions that you have for the podcast, and then, of course, subscribe to be notified every time a new episode comes out. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I'll see you in a bit.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
You guys are amazing. Bye.
I love you.